Welcome back. This February, we celebrate Black History Month, and Dyckman Farmhouse invites us to join a 6-week series of talks to learn about several unique New York Black experiences. Joining us now to share more are Meredith Sorin-Horsford, Executive Director at Dyckman Farmhouse, and Dr. Gretchen Sorin, Director of Cooperstown Graduate Program, and also the author of the book, Driving While Black, African American Travel and the Road to Civil Rights, and co-producer of the documentary film on PBS, Driving While Black, Race, Space, and Mobility in America. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
us.
Of course. Meredith, you've joined us before on the show, but just for our viewers who are just tuning in, can you tell us a little bit about Dyckman Farmhouse?
Sure. The Dyckman Farmhouse Museum is an 18th century farmhouse. It was on approximately 250 acres of farmland in what was then very rural New York State. And today we are part of Inwood, part of New York City, in the northernmost neighborhood of Manhattan. We're the last remaining farmhouse in Manhattan.
Thank you, Meredith. And can you share more about how Dyckman Farmhouse is kicking off Black History Month through your series of talks talking about race matters?
Sure. So we did this lecture series for the first time in August during the heart of the pandemic. And we really felt like it was an important time to talk about not only the history, which we do all of the time at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum, but also how the history of race really relates to where we are today as a nation. So we did that in August, and we really felt that it was important and created such a great dialogue that we wanted to do a second iteration of the lecture series and, of course, kick it off for Black History Month.
And the first of the series, Unearthing New York City's Forgotten Past, will be taking place tomorrow, February 3rd. What will this talk entail?
So we are working with Herbert Signoret, who works for CUNY, and he also works for the institute that is doing additional research on Seneca Village. He is going to be talking with us about not just what they already know about Seneca Village, this 1820s free Black settlement in the area where now Central Park sits. But he's also going to be talking about the fact that they're continuing to conduct research on this settlement, on this community, and something that they're continuing to talk about and bring awareness to. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that.
So folks who participate can also see archival footage and photographs and things of that nature through the virtual realm that we're watching this.
Yes, he has some great images showing, where exactly in the 80s between 7th and 8th Avenue, Seneca Village existed in the 1800s. And then, talking about what was there. We know that there were Black churches. We know that this was a whole community that in the 1850s, the city of New York just decided to basically take it over through eminent domain and kind of evicted all of its residents just to create a beautiful park.
Oh my gosh, that is riveting information. You don't want to miss it. It starts tomorrow, folks, February 3rd. Go to dyckmanfarmhouse.org, is it, Meredith?
Yes, you got it.
Find out more. As we've learned, the Dyckman Farmhouse has a history of slavery. Gretchen, you will be exploring this history in a talk called Generations of Slavery on the Dyckman Property. Can you tell us more about this talk and what people can expect to learn?
Well, one of the things that's pretty exciting is that the Dyckman Farmhouse has hired this amazing historian who has been really digging into all of the 18th century records about slavery in Manhattan. And he has developed a wonderful report that really it identifies some of the enslaved people who worked on the Dyckman Farmhouse by name, which I think is wonderful. And if you think about Upper Manhattan and what it must have been like in the 17th and 18th centuries, it was from river to river, it was farmland. It was, it had to be tilled with animals. There were no machines at that point. And so it really took a lot of hard individual human labor in order to produce the fruits and vegetables that were produced there. And so the people that lived in what's now Inwood would have had enslaved people to help them with that farm work. So this project has basically made those invisible people visible.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, the piece of history that we have with Dyckman Farmhouse still standing there in Inwood is incredible. So folks that see it and say, whoa, this looks like it doesn't belong in the middle of Inwood, but it absolutely doesn't. It's part of the history of that area. Can you share what other topics will be explored throughout the series and what else folks can expect?
Sure. As you mentioned, it's a 6-week long series. So we're starting off with talking about Seneca Village. Then next, we're going to be talking about the Dyckman Oval, which was a baseball field uptown where predominantly the Negro Leagues would play. And I think it's a topic that probably not a lot of people know that much about. We'll also be talking about Zora Neale Hurston and Pora Bulpray, who brought kind of Black and Latinx folk culture to New York City. We'll also be talking about slavery at Sylvester Manor, which is another farm out on Shelter Island. That'll be a really exciting topic and a place that I've really wanted to visit. And then we'll also be talking about jazz and dance in Harlem. So and then of course, as you already heard, the last one of the series to really wrap it up is the history of enslaved people at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum.
Got it. And for anyone tuning in, how can they find out about this series and all of the events that are happening? Where can they register, Meredith?
Sure. Yes, please sign up. You can go to our website, which is dyckmanfarmhouse.org, and you'll find all of the information to register. It is a free program. We just ask that people register so that they can get the link to join.
Got it. And I also wanted to mention Dyckman Discovered, an initiative that the Dyckman Farmhouse also started. What is it and how can people access it?
Sure. So we got a grant from the New York Community Trust to hire the historian that we were just talking about to do extensive research on the people that were enslaved on the Dyckman farm, who we knew very little about before this project. So through this project, we have found out a few names of some of the people who were enslaved on the property, like Francis Cujo, and then a few first names of some other people that were enslaved on the property, and also free people that were living on the property in the 1800s. So this information can be found also on our website. There's a tab on dyckmanfarmhouse.org that's called Dyckman Discovered.
And Dr. Sorin, I know you like to be called Gretchen. I saw one of your interviews, so I'm calling you Gretchen in this interview. But I wanted to bring up your book, Driving While Black, African-American Travel and the Road to Civil Rights. And of course, the PBS special based on it is a powerful exploration of the mobility and freedom of African-Americans and how it exposed them to discrimination and deadly violence. Can you share more about these, the book and also the PBS series and how folks can tune in this Black History Month and anytime really?
Well, the book is really about mobility. It's about how when people of color first came to the United States, or what was then the colonies, their mobility was restricted, and that mobility has continued to be restricted. And I think one of the most important things about the book, about the story, is that we can see in this story how we got to where we are today. And we can see how the relationship between African Americans and people of color and law enforcement, how it was formed historically and how it persists until the present day.
And that's available online for folks to watch, and the book is also available online?
So the documentary is available online at pbs.org, and the book, Driving While Black, African American Travel and the Road to Civil Rights, I tell people, it's certainly available on Amazon, but I tell people it's great to go to your independent book dealer, especially if it's a Black-owned business or Latino-owned business, and give them the business, and you can get the book that way. It's just come out in paperback, so it's inexpensive, and I hope it's a good read.
I'm sure it's at the Lit Bar here in the Bronx, our only independent bookstore here in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. So folks, check it out over there. Support your independent bookstore, Black owned as well.
I think also it might be at Sisters Uptown Books as well, also Black owned.
Sisters, all right, plug in. Yes, Sisters Uptown Books and the Lit Bar, y'all. So it's available locally. Thank you so much for sharing. Finally, again, just to help people keep in touch, how can they learn more, register as well for the Talking About Race Matters, and please invite them to the first of the series tomorrow.
Wonderful. So as I mentioned earlier, all of the information for the lecture series is available on our website, which is dyckmanfarmhouse.org. So this series will take place every Wednesday night throughout the entire month of February and the first 2 Wednesdays in March at 6 p.m. So please follow us on social media. We'll be posting about it all of the time. Please register for the lecture series, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Gretchen, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Again, folks, Talking About Race Matters launches tomorrow, February 3rd at 6 p.m. To join the conversation, you can register online at dyckmanfarmhouse.org. You can also follow at Dyckman Farmhouse on social media to see the rest of the events taking place weekly on Wednesdays through March 10th. We'll be right back.